Have you ever felt or sensed that there was more possible for you, but for some reason you weren't able to access those better possibilities? You may have heard me say that all possibilities already exist in the one, in the limitless field of possibilities. So why can't we access the things we want? What creates self-limitation? And how can we move beyond it? Today we're discussing the root of self-limitation, how to move beyond it, and what is possible when we do. After the discussion, we get to the most important part of this episode. The group frequency calibration at the end is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. My name is Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing breaking away from self-limitation.
So Karen, I talk about a lot that I'm doing this work as well.
Yeah.
So I've noticed for me, I'll go through waves of kind of getting in my own way and almost like sabotaging the work sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you ever witness this in your other clients? And what do you have to say about that when we kind of get in our own way?
Yeah, totally. So to me, what you're talking about is self-limitation. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I think we've all had moments or can relate to moments where you're striving towards something, you're doing the work, however that shows up for you, and then you just can't quite get there. Like you know that there's something else accessible to you, but you can't get there. Whether it's success in your career, whether it's in a relationship that you really want to have, whether it's in financial abundance, it's like you can feel the possibility there for you.
You know what you need to do, but it's just not
it's not happening. And you're just like, and you realize that it's yourself.
Yes.
You are self-limiting.
Yes.
Okay. So I love that you asked that question because this is something that a lot of people, when they start work with me, come to me for because they recognize that they're stuck.
Yeah.
They're in a place where they can't get beyond and they need help from somebody.
Yeah.
So, there are many, many reasons that we're going to get into for why this can happen. So we're going to go into a whole bunch of kind of different distortions and like general things that can happen, which cause this kind of stuckness or this self-limitation. But what I just want to back up and talk about, big picture, is ultimately it comes down to your distortions. Right? What distortion patterns are you running which cause you to feel like you can't access something, right? And so don't forget, it sounds funny that things on a spirit level happen first and then their physical reality mirrors it, but truly that's where it begins. So that's why I keep saying look for your distortion, because that's the beginning point of everything. So that's why frequency work is so powerful, because if you can release the source of the problem, which is the distortion pattern, then things reorganize in your reality to support that change, okay? Then all of a sudden things that were not accessible to you are. So it starts to release some of that stuckness. Now, what I'll also say is when you said you go through these periods where you feel stuck. Okay, so just generally speaking, before we get into distortion patterns specifically, in terms of what specific distortion patterns can cause this self-limitation, we can also go through these phases where our distortion patterns get louder and amplify. It's not like they get more in number, especially if you've been doing frequency work and releasing them. They don't come back. It's the ones that are remaining, the suckers that are still there. They amplify and get louder.
Is that
sometimes.
Detox or that's different?
Sometimes it's detox.
Okay.
And sometimes that's your higher self being like, pay attention here. You have to release this in order for you to get to the next level of resonance.
Yep.
Okay. So you're just like, oh my God, what is happening?
That sounds like what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. And you're just like, really? It's like no matter where you turn, like there it is. Like there it is. And the reason there it is because your higher self is like, you got to clear this, honey. Yeah. You're not going anywhere. You clear this.
Yep.
So unless you deal with it, then it's still going to be there.
Wherever you go.
Wherever you go, exactly. And because you've been doing more work, like someone like Tia, you realize that it's like no matter where you go, you can't get away from it.
Yes.
You know what it is. You're like, oh, where's that distortion pattern?
Know what it is, know what I need to do.
Exactly. And then you either can't do it quite yet, or we have minds and we have identities and we have pain bodies and we have all of these things. And sometimes as a human, it can be hard to rally to address the distortion.
Right. Okay? Especially when things are happening, maybe if you have like more trauma that's happened, or you know, deaths in the family or you're pregnant or
something.
You know, a lot of, I feel like those things can make it harder.
Yes.
Right. And that's that wave of challenge.
Yeah. And the thing is, in those challenges, now I realize for some people who are in challenge, you may want to slap me, and I understand that. So that's okay. But when you're in that challenge, there's always gift, right? There's always this opportunity to really move up in your resonance, right? So for example, for you, you've had a recent death in the family for someone close. And although it was a horrible circumstance and it was really intense, and we don't need to go into details, that's something that personal, but for you, it turned into an incredible gift. Yeah. And but you stayed present in it. Do you see what I'm saying? You didn't avoid it. You're like, here's the challenge. I need to deal with these distortions. I'm going to do it right now. Right? That's basically how, to me, how it seemed.
That's exactly right.
What you did. And because you did that, you cleared and you just jumped into the next level of resonance. So my point with challenge is that, and we did a whole episode on challenge, and there's a whole deep dive on leveraging challenge. But the reason those moments are so key, the reason where you get stuck, is for you to transcend it, okay? Especially for those of you who are doing frequency work. You're being shown it because you can transcend it. It is your opportunity. And when you get through that fire of like, okay, I see the distortion, I can release it, you know, whatever it is, confirm the removal, all the stuff that we're teaching in Mastering Momentum, the 6 Core Essentials. If you do the 6 Core Essentials, you'll notice, you can see it, and you're like, okay, I see it, I recognize that, I'm going to move past it. See it, recognize it, I can move past it. You know, so not just move past it, release it. That's the most important thing, right? So,
and think about the past, like you've done it before. It sometimes can feel like so heavy.
And daunting.
But it's like you've gone through it before. And again, everything's always moving and shifting. So
totally.
Just make it through.
Exactly. And you know, everyone has those moments, and it's where when I've gone through those moments of fire, and because we all have, what I always think is like, I'm not staying here. This sucks.
Oh, right.
Yeah, like if I don't clear this distortion, I'm not going to keep experiencing it. I want to delete it.
Right.
And how lucky and amazing for us that we have the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom that we know that we can release these distortions. Like we have this understanding that's a higher level understanding of how frequencies work, that the physical is merely a mirror of what is happening on frequency level. So if you do the work to release the distortion, your physical reality can be organized very fast. So
that's a lovely outlook and reminder. Thank you.
It's hard when you're in the fire.
It is.
It totally is.
Okay. Do you have any personal examples of clients who, you know, were able to kind of get out of their own way?
Totally.
The top of your head?
So for example, one of the things that can really bog people down in terms of self-limitation is something that you and I have talked about before, called foundational distortion patterns. So if you don't know what we're talking about, there's a whole episode called The Worst Distortions of All. Okay, so if you don't know what that is, go find that, because we'll talk all about what the foundational distortion patterns are and why they're so critical and how they can really hijack your experience. So for example, I have a client who, when she really had challenge with low self-worth, non-deserving in relationships specifically, not with anything else, in intimate partnership.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so for her, she would always end up with people who, with guys who were either not there for her, or were emotionally abusive, or she really, or didn't appreciate her in some way. Okay, and so she kept doing a bunch of different work, and part of her self-limiting, which I'm getting to, is she kept thinking to herself, like, I'm not worthy of having a better relationship. Really, that's how she would self-limit. Like, I guess I'm just going to go out with this guy, because who else am I going to find? Because they're all kind of the same.
Yeah.
You know? And so because she thought that, she kind of like put herself into a hole where she always was like perpetuating the same, right? She's got all these distortion patterns. Now she has this belief that's been like lived through because of the distortion, right? So now we're in this little cycle of she can't get out of this hole of like being with these guys that are kind of just jerks, and she's awesome. So, so once she started to release the low self-worth patterns, she started to realize, wait a minute, I am actually worthy of having a partner who appreciates me, who cares for me, who loves me, and I can receive it. That's a huge thing. So when you start to do that, now the self-limitation's gone. Because now she can start to be like, oh, wait a minute, I don't need him to make me whole. I like being with him, I love him, but I don't need him in that same way. So now the men she starts to attract and who she's attracted to totally shifts. So she gets out, but see, it's all kind of like intertwined together, right? So as she's releasing her distortion patterns, she realizes there's more potential for her. She doesn't have to settle for some guy. She actually has her own self-worth, her own completeness, her own, do you see what I'm saying? She understands her own value in a way that's not just mental, that other people are saying, like, why are you letting him treat you like that? She feels it. She knows, like, I am worthy of something better. And if I don't need it from him, so I'm complete with me. And so now she's actually, as a result, now in a partnership, they've gotten married. And he has a child, and she's always wanted to be a mom. But she's a little older, so she couldn't have her own kids.
Oh, perfect then.
So she just got a family, basically. It's perfect. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, she totally loves this child, okay? So my point simply is that all those, like, she literally wrote to me one day, and she said, because she stopped frequency work for a little bit, okay? Because she didn't need it. She got what she wanted out of frequency work. And she said, literally, I just want to thank you, because I wake up and I'm going to get emotional. She's like, I look at my life, and I have to, like, pinch myself.
Oh, that's the magic that comes out of it.
That's the magic.
Yes.
She's like, I just had to release the stuff that was keeping me stuck.
Oh,
you know? She's like, I pinch myself when I wake up in the morning.
Oh.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. And I do see that particular pattern a lot in women.
Yeah.
And I think I see it because I don't have the low self-worth, non-deserving in intimate partnership. I have it in other areas for sure. Yeah. But it, for some reason, doesn't go there. So I've always been like, I don't need a man. You know, and all the men come to me, I'm like, no, I don't need you. Like, that's not my problem. But seriously,
we all have our challenges in different places.
Yes. Okay. That for some reason has not been mine. But yeah, so I will see that just in relation to how I don't have that. That's why I'm able to see it. But yeah, a lot of women, so sad. Like, and you see this pattern over and over and over that they just settle because they think, oh, you know, it's the pattern, right? Yeah,
exactly.
That they don't under there, they don't think they deserve something better.
Yes.
So anyone who just gives them any kind of attention, they'll take it.
Take it.
I'm like, girl, no.
Exactly.
Just because he said something, you know, you don't even like it, you know.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind, but that's because, you know, that's a distortion pattern.
Yeah, and it's a foundational one of low self-worth, non-deserving. That one's a real big one.
What's another foundational one again?
Another foundational distortion pattern would be like spirit debt, where
that's a big.
Which is like there's a large cost to receiving, right?
So you have to work really hard to receive little.
Exactly. And it's on spirit level. So whether you're giving up a lot of your bioenergy or your focus or your attention or whatever it is that you're giving up, your emotional well-being, to receive a little bit of something else, like happiness, money, relationship, whatever. And for this woman that I'm talking about, she also had to release patterns of spirit debt, right? In relationship, where it's like she had to give tons in order to get like scraps of love, you know? And so I see that a lot with women too. So that's another foundational distortion pattern. So you've got that running and low self-worth, non-deserving. You've got like a cocktail of not good.
Not good.
And that's how you self-limit, because now all of a sudden, of course, you're just going to settle for like any dude who gives you attention, right? Because you see what I'm saying? You've got these distortion patterns running where it's like you're not worthy of something better, or even of yourself, like just being on your own, right? You need something from someone else. So so self-limitation is really often because of these foundational distortion patterns. Another thing that can cause self-limitation is what I call internal frequency conflicts. And so people are like, what's an internal frequency conflict, Karen?
Do tell.
It's basically polarization within. Okay, so when you have two distortion patterns that are in opposition to each other, okay? So, and they cause your system to have to try to balance the pull, okay? So for example, let me just give you an example of what that looks like. Okay, so let's say that someone intellectually knows they need to surrender because they realize, because they've heard me say, or other people say, surrender is key to your spiritual awakening. So they're like, of course I want to spiritually awaken, okay? Like if you're a person like this, okay. But they're also a control freak. So they want to know with certainty what the outcome is before they will surrender, right? So surrender is kind of conditional, right? So you have
which isn't really what surrender
is. Yeah, it's the opposite of surrender, right? Right? It's so frustrating. It's hard because they really want to surrender, but they can't really let go of the control, and they want to know the outcome first before they'll surrender.
Like, I'll surrender once I just know that next step.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no.
No, that's not how surrender works. And it's really difficult for people who have a lot of control issues. So on the one hand, you have this desire to surrender, and on the other, you have this really strong need to control. So now you've got inside the system, you have this polarization. And your body, it's fascinating to me, the stronger the polarization, the more bioenergy or life force it takes for your body to regulate it. Because your body, it's like you're being split apart.
Makes
right?
sense, yeah.
And your body's like trying, like with all of its chi, with all of its life force, trying to hold the system in integrity, right? Your body's always trying to balance itself. So here you are with these two opposite things on spirit level, and that causes that polarization, which causes self-limitation. So another example would be something like, you have all of these scarcity patterns running, right? So you don't feel like you have enough materially. Yet, but you have this like need to spend to feel like you're in abundance. Does that make sense? So you're in a state where it's like you have scarcity, so you don't want to spend anything, and you're like afraid because you don't have enough. And on the other hand, you're like spending like crazy because you want to feel like you have enough. Do you see how these are like opposite?
Yes.
So you have polarity in the system, and it doesn't matter. And by the way, it does not matter how much or how little money you actually have. You can have this if you have millions and billions of dollars. You can have this if you have not very much. It doesn't matter about the actual physical services.
It's a frequency pattern.
It's a frequency pattern. Yeah. It's your internal experience of it, of abundance, and being able to access it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So even if you have millions of dollars, you can feel like you don't have enough money. You can always be chasing it and then spending it like crazy to feel like you have enough. It's possible.
Wow.
And I've seen it. So my point is, you don't have to be like, you don't have to be without money to experience this.
Sure.
Right? So my point is, with these internal frequency conflicts, and there's so many of these, that you can be limited because your whole system is not in coherence. Right? Your system's trying to regulate this polarity. And it's very difficult to like have the coherence to move into something different, right? Because you're like fighting yourself a little bit, or a lot, depending on who the person is, right? So that can cause
And is that like a notification in yourself that you're stuck?
Yeah, it can cause that stuck feeling.
Right?
Yeah.
That polarization within.
Yes.
Because you think about it, if you have polarization, it's hard to move forward.
Exactly. Right. You're stuck. You're don't stuck. Move. There's like inertia.
Yeah.
Or not inertia. What's the word? Is that the right word? It's like, you're just stuck.
Lack of inertia.
Yeah, I know. You're just not moving. You know my point. So anyway, in any case, so that's something else that can cause self-limitation that people aren't aware of. It's amazing, once you release polarity in people, like all of a sudden things go into flow. They go into more ease, like things just start to move.
I bet you see that a lot.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah, so like things just start to like shift, and you've had this happen actually before. So I remember once we did a session and you were worried, and I had to do, I'm sorry,
go ahead. Yeah.
So you were talking about scarcity, I think at some point, and you were worried about your partner making enough money, and then all of a sudden, after we released polarity, what happened? You like booked a whole bunch of privates.
Oh yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was really cool. That's how I knew it was the session, because it literally happened like the next day.
Yep.
And it was something that has not happened before, and nothing has changed.
Yeah.
In our lives, like he's had the same job teaching yoga, but like an experience happened where all of a sudden someone was looking for someone to teach privates who happened to be a male and funny and made them feel comfortable, and it was like, oh, he was the perfect person.
Yeah.
They interviewed, he loved him. Boom, wanted to book 3 days a week. All this,
Yeah, and privates, he makes a lot more money.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And that became, and then all of a sudden privates at the hotel he teaches. Yeah, it was just like opened spiraling.
Up. Yeah.
I was like, what? We didn't do anything different. And I was like, Karen. That was yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. And that, honestly, you release an internal polarization, things can shift really fast. Now for Tia, because you've been doing a lot of the work and your resonance is higher, the change happens very fast in your physical.
It's very fast.
In your physical reality.
Yes.
But that's my point, is that you release a polarization, all of a sudden, all this flow comes in, you're like, whoa, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
It came from a release, like a binding that was in your system that now all of a sudden isn't there. And now all of a sudden you have a flow. And you're like, what?
It's so cool.
Yeah, it's totally cool.
And that's hopefully inspiration for people to just keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's not even that hard. Like, just listen to it while you fall asleep. Or,
you mean listen to a GFC?
Yeah, GFC, yeah. Doing that for, of course you want to, clear distortions. I mean, remove
Confirm the removal.
Thank you. Confirm the removal when that comes up.
Yeah.
And that's work.
Yeah.
But it's not like super challenging. Like,
Yeah.
let's just do it. Everybody, come on.
Yeah, that's what creates the awareness.
Yeah, it's so
you just have to be
helpful.
aware. You have to be aware.
Yeah.
Totally. So those are the things that I would say are the biggest things. Then, of course, depending on who you have lineage patterns, cultural patterns, religious patterns, right? That can cause limitation of self.
Yeah.
And it can seem overwhelming if you think about it. You're like, oh my God, I have all this conditioning from this person and that person and this religion and my culture and blah. So it can be overwhelming if you think about it in your mind. So my recommendation is don't. Just do the frequency work, and what will happen is you will release the distortion. Your higher self is actually very smart, okay? It's way smarter than we are. So you'll start to release the distortion, and it will start to speed up. So when that happens, then you have this momentum, and you'll just want to do it more. And it's not that you all of a sudden are like addicted to it. What you want is the clarity. Does that make sense? You're like, I can feel that things are changing. I don't know exactly how, because it doesn't look like it yet on the external, but I feel better. And I don't know why. And so you start wanting to do it more and more. At least that's what my experience was.
Same.
And then you start to feel this level of clarity, and you're like, I really like the clarity.
Yep.
Oh, wait, I have less clarity because this thing just showed up for me. Oh, wait, but I have the power. I know what to do to release that. So it's really cool.
That is so great. Thank you so much. This is super helpful.
Yeah, you're most welcome. And for those of you who want to start to move past some of your self-limitation, the GFC that's associated with this particular episode will start to give you the momentum to do that. And if you like this episode, please click the like button below and subscribe to the channel in the bottom right corner of this video. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.